Hello. How are you? Yeah. Thank you so much. Yes, that is correct. I am Aasif Mandvi, and I am your MC for the evening. Thank you. Tonight is Trump's worst nightmare. Right? A room full of Broadway fans coming together to be lectured at by a Muslim. Maybe that's not fair. He doesn't hate Muslims. Trump doesn't hate Muslims. Trump actually loves Muslims, as long as they're billionaire Muslims who are slaughtering other Muslims. He's probably just jealous. It's just jealousy. But let me begin by saying, on behalf of people of most races and most genders, that the ACLU has long been an organization of heroes for many of us. And we need heroes right now, because let's face it, we have a supervillain in the White House. Trump is like so many supervillains, right? He's like wrapped into one. He's Lex Luthor, a rich, power-mad businessman. He's the Joker, a leering criminal who loves chaos and has unnatural skin color. He's the Penguin, because he's scared of sharks and has a small mushroom-shaped penis. I don't know if penguins have that, but they could. He also has his henchmen, right? And his henchwomen, Kellyanne Conway, who has the power to spin anything Trump says into unrecognizable bullshit. Sarah Huckabee Sanders with the power to dismiss legitimate questions with the flick of an eyebrow. Stephen Miller with the power to make any normal sentence sound racist. I'll have the white meat, I don't want to accuse the guy of trying to put coded language into every single thing he writes or says, but he must spend all day with dogs running over to him. We have a big election coming up, and it's maybe the most important election of our time. Thank you. One registered voter. Here's a fact for you. There are more women running this fall than ever before. And our president, he claims he loves women. He loves them so much, he's married 3 of them. How many of you married, sir? 1? Yeah, sexist. Actually, the truth is, if you were trying to make up a character who was the worst possible enemy imaginable to women, it would be Donald Trump, right? He's like basically a walking mansplaining UTI. Yes. The fact that there's so many women running is not only good for the women, it's good for the country, Yeah. Filling the Congress with women is the best way to ensure that Mike Pence is never allowed in the chamber. So, Mike Pence has so much respect for women. He calls his wife mother, just so people know what her job is. He's a man of great faith, though, and I admire that. No matter what troubles he endures or how many times he's let down or how many people question him, he still believes that one day he'll be president. And that's devotion. President Trump is also famous for attacking anything that makes him look bad, right? The press, the FBI, the judiciary, the Justice Department. But you know what else makes him look bad? Clothes and cameras. Donald, how can you be so fat and your clothes still look big on you? But as much as I respect the work being done by the ACLU, and I do, don't get me wrong, I am here tonight to pick a bit of a bone with you guys tonight. Because look, okay, sure you've helped protect women's rights, gay rights, minority rights, but what have you done to protect the rights of white men? Huh? Nothing. It is a difficult time to be a rich white man in America, okay? They're scared. No, they're living in fear, whether they're a movie director or a senator or a professional gamer with an irritating YouTube presence. It's almost gotten to the point where a rich white man can't do literally anything he wants with zero consequences. And yet the ACLU does nothing. Shame on you. Yeah, you defended the KKK once. So what? Trump defends them every day. So, who's defending civil liberties now, huh? It's a scary time to be a white dude in America. There are millions of white men in America, and only 5 of them are on the Supreme Court. That is a travesty. We need white men. They are literally the electricity that keeps America going. That's why they call it white power. But every week in Trump's America, there are, and this is true, 1 billion news cycles. I mean, just look at the stories coming out of the last several days. Melania Trump has been doing some press now, and she did an interview in Egypt where I couldn't tell if she was dressed as Carmen Sandiego, Hannibal Lecter, or one of the Nazis from Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. And Melania says she's the most bullied person in the world. And she's not even talking about her marriage. I mean, who is looking out for the oppression of the rich and powerful? Where is their movement? Where is the Occupy Wall Street for the people who actually occupy Wall Street? This bullying has to stop. Speaking of bullying, by the way, let's ease up on Kanye, okay? Come on, I know he went into the Oval Office and said the word motherfucker, but we all know the only person allowed to fuck mother is Mike Pence. Brett Kavanaugh. Wow. Liana and Donna didn't even want to say his name, and I understand that. Apparently, if you say his name 3 times, you end up at Beach Week with Squee and PJ. Brett Kavanaugh looks like a piece of ham that learned to talk, right? That's a lot coming from a Muslim. Brett Kavanaugh is the only person I've ever seen who looks drunk when he's sober. He mentioned beer 30 times in his job interview. 30 times. The only time that might be appropriate is if you were applying to be a taste tester at a Heineken factory. And even then, they might be like, Jesus, dude, chill out. We get it. You like beer. And you might think that's mean, but guess what? I haven't even gotten into all the stuff Brett Kavanaugh has been accused of, and now this no-neck, khaki-skinned lacrosse stick of a human is the Supreme Court justice. That only makes sense if we can put the word justice in quotes. And now Trump and Senate Republicans are blaming the firestorm over Kavanaugh on mob rule, right? Watch out for the angry mob, they say. First of all, Trump has no right to be complaining about the mob. Trump has more mob ties than all the De Niro characters in every movie ever. Second, when the majority of Americans rise up in anger, it's not mob rule, it is called democracy. You remember democracy, right? It's that idea of government by the whole population, not just the rich, white, Russian ones. Trump saying our election was rigged is probably the only true thing he's ever said. Besides the fact that if Ivanka weren't his daughter, he'd be dating her. And when he said LaGuardia Airport sucks, which is probably the most unifying statement he's ever made. I think we can all get behind that. Can I get an amen there? You know. But now, with a minority of Americans electing the president and Congress, our democracy is operating, you know, in the opposite of how it's supposed to, right? It's like we're living in 1984. And I don't mean Boy George 1984, I mean George Orwell 1984. Now that I think of it, Temple of Doom was the #1 movie in 1984. That explains Melania's outfits. Speaking of democracy, tonight is a night to support its greatest defender. Tonight is our opportunity to support the American Civil Liberties Union. Which has been a champion of our rights, like the right to control our own bodies, the right to privacy, and of course, the quintessentially American right to freely express ourselves. And no one exercises that freedom of expression quite like the Broadway community. And where the freedoms that the ACLU protects collide with the imagination and fearlessness of theater people, unbelievable things can happen. There is a show on Broadway right now with a black Alexander Hamilton and a black George Washington, and the real George Washington owned slaves. And you could go see that any night of the week. Okay, well, not any night of the week. They're sold out. So maybe you could see it in a couple of months, you know, if you know someone, right? But from Torch Song Trilogy to a band's visit to a musical about some very, very kinky boots, Broadway is more than a safe haven for the disenfranchised. It is a place for the immigrants, the drag queens, and everyone who has ever been marginalized to strut and to thrive. And if you don't think of that when you think of America, I feel bad for you, because you just haven't been to Broadway yet. But for those of you who have joined us tonight, we are bringing Broadway to you. So with no further ado, she has starred in Falsettos, Wicked, The Mystery of Edwin Drood, and next month she will begin previews as Cher in the Cher Show. Please welcome two-time Tony nominee Stephanie J. Block.